Welcome to Beyond the Wild podcast, where we go venturing beyond the gear, beyond the subject, beyond the shot, to find the heart of wildlife and adventure creative. Beyond the Wild podcast is brought to you by Pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA. Listen in, we share tips and tactics learned from years of journeying into the wild. Your hosts are Jason Loftus, Ron Hayes, and myself, Mark Raycroft. Let's begin another episode of Beyond the Wild.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. Got myself, Ron Hayes, Jason Loftus, coming to us from Utah after just having been the guest on another podcast, which we will put out later on. And guest tonight, we're going to have a discussion about a trip that these two guys just took together. They travel together all the time, but just got back from an incredible destination, one that was more family friendly than some that they travel to in Costa Rica. And so welcome Kelly Elmer, a past guest on the show and probably future guest on the show. But welcome back, Kelly.
Great. Thank you. Great to be here.
So jumping right into it, you guys had an incredible trip. Not that you ever have a trip where you don't get some good images, but the stuff that I've seen from this one, not only the quality, but the variety is what I was looking forward to talking to. The biodiversity in those kind of semi-rainforest to cloud forest to arid regions. You have a ton of variety in Costa Rica. So just to get us started, kind of tell us about the biodiversity that you guys experienced.
Yeah, I had a photography friend a couple years ago that went on this trip and noticed some images that she had posted. So I contacted her to find out, get some more information about her trip. And one thing led to another. She put us in touch with some people, and I contacted them, and we explained to them. I explained to them that we were looking for a lot of diversity because from the north port of Costa Rica to the Caribbean side, to the Pacific side, to the southern side, there's like a bunch of different eco stuff going on, and every one of them has different kind of species that are more readily available. And naturally, I wanted to get a photo of all of them, and so we talked to some guys, and they put together a trip for us that took us to the highlands, they call it, and then to the lowlands, to the coast, and to the rainforest. And it was amazing how every area had a different set of species. The species were more plentiful in those areas, and they were really good about helping us photograph them. They knew before we got there, they knew the best places to locate them, and so it ended up being actually better than I thought it would be as far as content and opportunities to shoot. We were always, I think we had our cameras going every day at some point. It was really well worth the trip.
And you set this thing up, right, Kelly?
Yeah, for years, my grandma used to have Nat Geo magazines, and used to all the pictures of the jungle, and you'd see. And back then, I thought that Toucan Sam on the Fruit Loop box was just a cartoon. I didn't know it was a real bird. And then I had a sixth grade teacher, Miss Trineri, who loved Central America, and our whole sixth grade experience was on Central America. And so I saw lots of pictures, and that was my first exposure, my first photo that I'd ever seen of the red-eyed green tree frog. And I thought, I got to have a picture of that. And then you see everybody getting their own photos, and it's like, most of us as photographers, you can really appreciate the images that other guys get, but having your own content, your own lens and your own camera on the subject is a whole different experience. And that's kind of what I wanted. And I wasn't sure if anybody wanted to go with me. I just was bound determined to go by myself. And I talked to Jason, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm okay with that." It wouldn't be like we're going to shoot bears. By then it's, of course I'm going, but I had to convince him a little bit, but I think it was a trip that we could take. We had, there were only probably 4 of us that were serious photographers. The rest were family or some friends that were birders. and they had a wonderful time. And so it was a lot of diversity, but just a good group, which added to the enjoyment of the trip. And I thought it was a good trip, a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd echo that. I think they knocked it out of the park, and I'm glad Kelly put it together. We'll get into the stories of some of the as we progress through the trip, and there's the first part's pretty funny because my attitude was a little different right off the bat, but we'll talk about it.
Right, because it does not have antlers, and they
No.
No.
Had nothing to do with that, honestly. I mean, I knew what I was getting into on this trip, honestly, as far as that goes, and I was actually excited to, big ones for me were the red-eyed tree frog and the eyelash viper. I really wanted to photograph the sloth, and the monkeys were kind of a cool critter for me to want to photograph. And I'll be honest up front, I wasn't as gung-ho about a lot of the birds, but I'll tell you what, the first toucan that flew in front of me and landed on the tree, and I was like, wow. I mean, I was shooting away. I mean, I was like, wow, this is cool. Okay, I get it. This is neat. To see that kind of bird in the wild is pretty amazing, honestly. So
every bird that flies by is just packed with color. I mean, it's just you couldn't. If you had a paintbrush and a palette, you couldn't put more color on these birds. And it was. I mean, when we were shooting that toucan that time when he came in, there was a bunch of noise and someone yelled, macaw. So we look around, here's these scarlet macaws, these green macaws flying over, screaming and yelling. We're trying to photograph these toucans, and there's this stuff going on all over the place. And it was pretty cool. And that was our first destination, like the first day or second day. So it was really fun to get things rolling that way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So before we get into that too deep, I kind of want to dig in a little bit deeper to just for people that kind of want to do these DIY type photo trips and dig into, you said you had a contact. So the research that you did to make sure that you hit each of these different ecosystems, was that all one contact or was that multiple?
That was one contact.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I did is there's lots of people, there's the tour groups are a big thing now. And I just I got the information of the gentleman in Costa Rica that has the contacts, and I contacted him directly and told him what I wanted, and extended their normal pattern. Their normal tour was like from point A to point B in over like 7 days. And I said, hey, I want to go from point A to point B in 10 days because there's some things I don't want to come home without seeing a tree frog, and I want to see the toucans, and I want to see, and we had to be to 3 separate areas. And each one of these areas was probably, what do you think, 3 or 4 hour drive away?
Yeah.
And so it was a significant, we'd shoot in the morning at our location, wherever we were. And then after breakfast, we would get in the van, and then we would travel to our next destination during the middle of the day, usually. And then we would go to our next, and we stayed at each destination, at least the major ones, 2 or 3 nights, which was perfect. I mean, up in the highlands, there were hummingbirds everywhere. I mean, every kind of hummingbird, and then the quetzal. Those were unique to the highlands, and well worth the drive to get to see them. It was really cool.
And did you guys get to see that scissor tail hummingbird?
I don't think we did see that.
I don't think we saw that. Yeah,
we saw a mot, which is a bird. It's a scissor tail, very rare and just way cool too. But I don't think we saw the scissor tail hummingbirds.
I may be saying it wrong. It's got a really long tail. You would definitely know it if you'd seen it.
Is it in Costa Rica or Colombia?
Costa Rica, yeah.
No, we never got to see that. We saw probably every other one, but I mean, they'd be, one of them would be like one mature hummingbird would be like 1.5 inches tall. Then another one would be the size of a robin. I mean, it was
really?
It was really, a lot of diversity. Really cool.
Yeah. We
were shooting them at that location or a different location one time, and I turned around and there's a hummingbird sitting right on top of my gimbal, looking right at me. Just right there.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
Yeah.
So where did you guys fly into?
San Jose.
Okay. And then just home based out of there?
No, every day we traveled 4 hours plus or minus, and then stayed there for 3 nights.
Okay.
And then we traveled another 3 hours and stayed there for, how many nights did we stay at the second place?
2, I think.
2. And then went to the Highlands and stayed there for
3 nights.
Three nights. Then went down, and the end of the trip we were on the river, and did a river trip,
on the Pacific side.
On the Pacific side, which on the surface you think, we've seen crocodiles and alligators, and we've seen herons, but we saw a couple birds that were well worth the trip. It was fun. Well worth the trip.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was just going to say, so kind of like to Kelly said, like the first area we went to we stayed in a hotel in San Jose, and then we stayed the night. The next morning they picked us up, and we were like 4 hours to get to the first location, like Kelly said. And then that first location we did, toucans and some parrots and just a bunch of different birds.
The macaws were there.
Macaws, yeah. There was a lot of really cool birds. And one morning shoot was actually focused on king vultures, which was like one that wasn't even kind of on my radar really, but it was like really cool. I was blown away by them. They're really a neat bird, just the color and everything, the markings and that. And it was one of the only places you can do it, apparently, to get these king vultures. And then we did bats, flying bats, nectivorous bats. Did I get that right, Kelly?
Nectivorous, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But anyways, so, and that was the first location, but yeah.
So I didn't bats, realize. Did you guys photograph the bats at night?
Yeah. We did.
With flash setup?
Yep.
Yeah.
And did they use, where they cut a beam, or was it just a timing thing?
Just luck, praying and spraying.
A lot of click, 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 click. Oh, dang it. Click, click. Yeah.
No, we focused on the focal plane of the flower.
Yep.
And then from there was depending upon luck, trying to get them the timing. There was no light on the flower or nothing. And we had a little bit of ambient light on the floor, so you'd see something flash out of the corner of your eye, and we had to go mechanical shutter, and you had to go single shot. So we're just trying to, as fast as we can, to get the timing right. And it took us we shot those, and then we shot the hummingbirds, and we found out with two of us shooting at the same time, overlapping, we had a bunch of black images because they couldn't sync together fast enough. And so after that, we devised a plan to where Jason and I started it off where we would just take turns doing bursts, and we got a lot more usable images that way. Yeah, it just worked out a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah, because those lights being out of sync is gonna jack up your.
And I was a little bit impressed that the speed lights they were using were able to recycle fast enough as it was, but it's a pretty low light thing. I mean, there wasn't a lot of power needed. We just needed the speed because we were just trying to get lucky and get that bat just coming up to that flower with its tongue out, and get it all in the same focal plane so stuff was in focus.
Yeah. I think Ron Nieberge, he's in Arizona, but he also has a place up in Seward, Alaska. Ron was a friend of Mike's we had him on Wild and Exposed, and he does a lot of that bat stuff, but I'm pretty sure they use a laser sensor. So it's laser fired like a camera trap would be.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then the speed lights light from a couple different directions, but it's all synced up. But the same thing, they can only shoot one at a time. So it's one person's on for 10 minutes and then the next person's on for 10 kind of deal.
Yeah.
But
it was fun. I mean, I had no preconceived idea of shooting bats at night, but it ended up being one of the funnest things we did.
Yeah, it's something different. I mean, you guys have done a lot. So to be able to experience something different like that, I would bet would have been kind of a treat, if nothing else.
Yeah, it was a nice break from the normal,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when I put the trip together, he mentioned shooting king vultures, and I thought, well, no big deal. I mean, everyone's seen vultures, right? If we got to, okay, but I'd rather be shooting toucans and that kind of thing. It ended up being a highlight. And in fact, there was a guy we met there, became friends with. That's one of the cool things about photographers. You meet these people from all over the world, and you become kind of have a connection. And he ate dinner with us every night. That time he was from Denmark, and he was actually a vulture specialist, a biologist. That had been working in Africa, and he came there and was there on those vultures for 3 days straight. And that's the only reason he came to that location, was to shoot those king vultures because it was such a big deal.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was just they're cool critters. I mean, it was just fun to watch them do their thing.
Yeah.
So much color too.
This is the guy that makes his living as a biologist and is doing like work with vultures in Africa and banding and all that kind of. So to spend time and chat with him. He's a super nice guy, very knowledgeable, and just the stuff he shared with us, was just really cool. It was pretty fun. So yeah, like Kelly said, I kind of forgot about that, but that was a highlight of the trip too, for sure. But
it was like having Russ on the trip all over again, huh?
Yeah, but just specialized on vultures. No, he was a birder too, right, Kelly?
Yeah.
He was a big time birder. Oh, yeah. He connected with a couple of gals that were with us that were birding big time. Mm-hmm. In fact, they're the ones that originally invited him to come eat with us because he was flying solo. He was by himself on his trip.
Yep.
He just rented a car and drove 4 hours to this location just to shoot those king vultures for 3 days.
That's crazy.
But he was a really, really nice guy. Yeah, we really enjoyed. We had really good visits with him, and the work he was doing was really fascinating.
My only, and I just have to slip this in because this just shows how spoiled us Americans are. My only downside of the entire trip was the first day we were in the field. And we showed up at the first location. We're just getting off this air-conditioned bus, right? And that first day, it was the hottest day of the trip and the most humid day of the trip by far. And like not another day of the trip even came close. And I'm standing out there on the deck waiting for birds to kind of show up, and I'm just drenched. I'm sweating everywhere and can't get away from it. There's no breeze. We go to the rooms. There's no air conditioning in the rooms. There's a ceiling fan and an oscillating fan. Turn those things on. It just felt like an oven. I laid there all night that first night in a puddle of sweat and just woke up in a puddle of sweat. And I remember waking up the next morning because I wanted to get out early because the birds, get going pretty early. And looked at my wife, and we were in single beds on that first trip, so we were like, not sharing a bed. And I looked across the gap at her and I'm like, I don't know what in the heck we got ourselves into on this, but I am not having fun. This is not my idea of fun, right? But anyways, after that, honestly, that day it cooled off. The wind came in. The rest of the trip was fine. It wasn't that we weren't sticky and sweaty a lot. Obviously, you're in a rainforest, right? But it was tolerable. And the other locations we went to all had air conditioning, and the next couple nights got cool enough that we didn't even need it cooled off where I actually put a sheet on and whatever. Right? So the rest of the trip was great. It was awesome, and it just had to get over me, my crybaby. Pampered. you was to have an AC available whenever I need it. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
He wasn't the only whiner. I had a couple others too on the trip that were whining after the first day. One of the other people that went with us are good friends, and I almost had to convince them that it was going to be safe. They know me well enough to expect us that the trip was going to be intense the whole time because they know that that we do stuff like that. And I assured them, I said, no, it's not that kind of trip. We're there to photograph and you'll see lots of stuff, but the accommodations are nice. And I had to send him internet links to all the lodges we were staying at so that he could sign off on the deal. Cause they, like Jason was saying, these spoiled Americans that have to have the 5-star. Anyway, that was a little bit, we had a little bit of murmuring going on for that first night.
So true.
Sounds a little bit like Svalbard in reverse.
A little bit.
First day I got to Svalbard anyway was the coldest day of the trip, and I thought, well, we knew this could happen, and so we're prepared for it, but it's going to make it a little bit more miserable. And then we had this beautiful weather the whole time we were there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Honestly, the weather we had there the whole time was a lot better than I had imagined.
Yeah,
I figured that I'd be pulling out my rain gear for my cameras and stuff. I never had to do that once.
Nope.
We're close to the equator. We're in the tropics. But I thought it went really well. I thought we had great opportunities, and I'd have no complaints at all.
Yeah, I think I put on bug spray twice, and it was when we were actually doing jungle walks, and the mosquitoes were getting a little more greedy than I was used to. But I think I walked out of there on the whole trip with maybe 4 or 5 mosquito bites. No joke. So yeah, it was like Kelly said, it couldn't have been better, honestly. Even that first day. I mean, let's be real. You're in the freaking rainforest. What do you expect, right? Honestly. But yeah, no, it was an amazing trip. It's one of those I'll definitely cherish for sure. Glad that we did it. Glad that we saw the things we saw. And I got photos of things I'd never get any other way.
I'm gonna do it someday. I've got a guy that I made contact with through Instagram. He's a Costa Rican photographer, Harvey Herrera, And I've talked to Harvey a couple times about coming down there, and it wouldn't be something that he would guide me on, but kind of the same as what you did with your contact. He would point me in the right direction, and I'll make a plan. But that was one of my concerns, was being too hot. I'd rather have Svalbard cold than be hot like that.
Jason's the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, amen. But it's tolerable, honestly. I think we actually gave them feedback. It's like, whatever, they're probably not going to do it either, and I don't blame them. But, if they just had a little unit in the room that you could get away from it when you wanted to, like go in and take a nap or something, get out of the heat, so to speak, but just that first day when it's really hot, you just can't get away from it, so. And we're used to being able to get away from it here, right? Whether it's cold or hot, we're used to being able to get away from it. So back to us spoiled Americans, But.
I was kind of looking at the infrastructures we were going through the country, and that particular area didn't have a lot of. It would have been a significant upgrade to get power to that facility, with enough size to run all those units for all the cabins that we had. Yep. So I can get where they're coming from. Yeah, and I think that maybe we kind of got towards the end of their trips. They don't do those areas. They don't do many of those locations much later than we were there for that very reason. And so I think that some of the customers or some of the photographers that come like a month or two later, it's not an issue for them. It might be a little rainier, a little cooler, but they don't have to. They're not getting into we're starting to get warmer and not as tolerable.
That's what I was going to ask. You planned this trip. Did you kind of plan it around a little shoulder season, or was it planned around the time when the bird species were all still going to be there?
I planned it. I got the dates we could when we actually set. A lot of these guys are booked out 2, 3, 4 years in advance, and I found out after the fact that it depends on what you want. We got everything we wanted, but if you want to see birds like the toucans or the macaws, their nesting and flying as pairs are a lot more active flying around in February.
Okay.
And so maybe if I were to do it again, I'd go maybe a month and a half sooner. But to get those dates, there's a lot of these big tour groups that come from the States, and they book those weeks out years in advance.
Yeah.
And so it worked out really good for us with spring break and with what they had available. And I asked all the questions, and he was very upfront with me about stuff when I was trying to decide on if we wanted to go, and it worked out great. I booked it. It was like a year, like 15, 16 months in advance is how long it took to procure all the lodges and go where we wanted to go.
So let's talk about these jungle walks. There's a couple species that, they would be my target species, and one is the eyelash viper, of course. But then there's one species down there that can be fairly aggressive, another snake species, the fertile ants. So did you guys take people with you for the jungle walks, or was it a trail system and you just took off?
Yeah, we had a guy, the guy that put it together for me had a local guy that lived in the area, and he had gone out the night before or day before and was looking for. I guess he does this on a regular basis because that's where he lives. I mean, just down the highway, a road a short way, and he would go and scout stuff. And we had some species didn't cooperate and didn't find them like they had thought, but we had some surprises. I mean, but that gentleman was always with us on the walk just because of the snakes and we had a couple of people on our trip that you say snake and they already get lightheaded. And so we just, it worked out really good. Everybody, he led the way and even had his machete out a couple times.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff, if we had gone totally solo, which sometimes we have in a different environment, we wouldn't have seen a fraction of what we saw.
No.
Because we're walking down this trail and he gets his machete out and starts hacking and goes all around this other tree. And there's, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest and you think the rainforests are thick there. But you get to the rainforest and the real rainforest, and it's a whole different thing. It's like the old Tarzan movies where they're macheting their way through and anyway, he does that for about, 15, 20 yards off the trail. And then looks underneath this leaf, and there's like 8 little fuzzy white bats under there, underneath this leaf. We wouldn't have seen that stuff in a million years.
No.
And then we're walking along, and he points over there, and 30 feet away is this hummingbird nest about the size of a quarter, with 3 little beaks sticking out of it. And we sat there for probably 30 minutes, and the mom comes in, feeds them, on this big old broad looking tropical leaf thing.
Yeah.
It was just cool.
So do they do the same thing down there with the spider silk, make their nests out of spider silk so it stretches?
I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was. I think
look, it was spider silk. Their nest looked like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could see all the real fine.
It wasn't just spider silk though. I think they said they use leaves and sticks and stuff too, but they mix it with the spider silk. So yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
That's neat.
And the day walks we did, they were all day walks. That's what I was going to say. The jungle walks we did were all day walks. We didn't do any night walks. Like, I know that's available and that's there. But again, I mean, depending on how adventurous you are, I'm not sure I'd do it on my own just because, knowing what to look for, knowing from a safety perspective, what you're going
to step on.
Right. Exactly. But,
and plus, from a photographer standpoint, we were looking for good light,
good opportunities.
Like that.
Right.
And the one walk we did, we found we saw the little bats. We found, because we were a little bit later in the nesting season, we found a toucan nest with a toucan on it. And that's where we saw the speckled owl. It was on one of those day trips. It's like and growing up as a kid, I've watched the cartoon King Arthur, the animated adult Disney King Arthur, and Archimedes, the owl, he's a speckled owl.
Yeah.
So we actually got
speckled or spectacled?
Speckled owl.
Okay.
So we actually got to see the speckled owl that Archimedes was drawn after, and we got some really good photos of him too. He was pig. The guy was pointing. He's right there, and we're looking, and because we're looking for our owls, and the thing was like 3 times the height.
Really?
The owls we're used to looking for here. It was a monster.
Yeah.
So, but it was pretty. Everybody got photos of that, and it was fun.
Kelly said when we first saw that spectacled owl, we were all like, "Oh, holy cow, that thing's huge!" I mean, it was so in our face we couldn't see it. You know what I mean? We were looking for. It was kind of funny. I mean, the guy was kind of like right there. Like it was one of those, like, you guys can't see that. Like,
the perspective was all weird because at our first location we had a screech owl.
It was a pygmy owl.
A pygmy owl. We had a pygmy owl.
They're really small. Yeah.
And so our whole perspective was messed up. And
of course you did. I mean, Jason was with you, for crying out loud.
Yeah. But it looks like it's wearing glasses. That's where it comes from. It actually looks like it's wearing glasses.
Yeah.
So that being said, we didn't talk about what kind of gear did you guys shoot with? I'm certain you probably had a couple setups, but because it's kind of like changing your lenses in a sandstorm, doing that in the rainforest. You don't want to do that either if you can help it. So how did you guys go on these walks set up?
I ended up, usually on these trips when we're kind of limited for space and when we're trying to carry all of our stuff on, I usually take like my 400 prime and my 1.4 teleconverter and then a 70 to 200. And in this case, we took macros because we knew we were going to be shooting the frogs. And the
frogs, yep.
But in this case, I sacrificed some space and actually made sure I had my 600 with me, my 600 prime. Mm-hmm. And I'm really glad I did because I found myself most of the time had my 600 prime on a tripod and I was packing my 400. And I was just swapping between those two. And that's about what I shot the whole time, I think, except for the macro lens. I could have got by with just those 3 and not really needed anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, same here. Same, almost identical. We talked a lot about it, right, in the planning for the trip and what's the right gear list and all that stuff. And I took almost identical. It's just, Kelly shoots Sony, I was shooting Canon, so just the differences there. But, I even rented a lens from Pictureline because I don't have a macro lens and rented the Canon macro lens. And that ended up working out really well too. So
did you use the 100 millimeter?
Yeah.
Macro?
100 millimeter, the RF mount. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a cool lens. Great. It did an amazing job. It was fun doing the macro stuff too. It's something that I haven't spent much time doing either. So another new one.
I had rain gear for everything, but didn't use it.
Right.
Whenever possible on these kind of trips, I try and have both bodies with lenses on them all the time. I hate changing lenses in those environments, especially with mirrorless cameras, because it could cause you all kinds of issues. And so I just kept my 400 on the one body on my 1A1 and kept the 600 on the other, and that's all I shot the whole time. Yep. Worked out perfect, actually.
Yep.
And when you went to do the macro, you were kind of intentional on that. You knew it was going to happen, so you didn't have to be changing it out in the field.
Yeah, we had better. The weather was better, and we didn't have to worry about it. I just changed it from the get go. I actually took a little photography backpack and stuck it in my check bag, so that for that I pulled it out, and we didn't have any of our long lenses on that. We were just shooting strictly macro. So I just had that gear in my little backpack and didn't need we used a tripod, but I didn't need. Actually, we didn't use a tripod.
No, we didn't use
a tripod. It was all handheld.
Yep.
So I didn't need hardly any gear. It was probably the less gear we needed when we were shooting the reptiles than we did anywhere else. So.
Yep. Yeah, we did. And if you remember, we did shoot the macro for the frogs, and then the snakes, we actually shot the 70 to 200s.
You're right, because
it was a little.
We didn't want to be that close.
Right.
Yeah, we needed more reach.
Yeah.
Shoot snake species besides the eyelash viper, or was that your primary species?
That was the primary, but we did I'm terrible with names, so please forgive us. But
I should have wrote those down. But we shot a boa at the end. We shot a boa, which was the largest of the snakes. We shot another viper, but it was a brown diamondback looking.
Green-sided. It was green-sided palm viper, I think.
That was the green one.
Right. And then we shot.
What was the brown? There were 4 we shot. Wasn't there another brown one that had the same viper markings, had the same head on it?
No, we only shot 3 snakes.
Okay.
You're thinking of the alligator frog, I think, but
probably
maybe.
That was
cool.
It's a
lot
too,
of it together. And the only reason I even know this, Kel, is because I literally just got through editing my reptile stuff the other day. So yeah,
because he knew he was going to have it ready for the show notes.
You're right. Yeah, I'm trying to knock it out. But I mean, either way, I mean, it was just insanely cool. Yeah, the snakes. The green one was cool because it would stick its tongue out. You know.
That's right. And it was green. It was just cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. We did have the 7200s, but that's the only time we used them.
Yeah.
Was for the reptiles.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we could have got away with not using them, honestly, if we really, just controlled the distance, right? But
yeah,
I was glad we had the 7200s for that.
Yeah, there's no reason getting that close to a pit or to a viper if you don't have to.
Right. But the eyelash vipers are not very big, right?
No.
No, it was the smallest of the ones we shot for sure. Yeah.
The guy was telling us
gorgeous. Yeah, sorry.
The guy that was telling us that the people get bit most by them are the ones that harvest bananas because they hang out in the banana trees.
Stay
and
there.
Their color is their natural camouflage, but it was they don't look dangerous. They just look cool. But that they have it in them. So
yeah, they're venomous either way. But yeah,
very venomous. And the green one was too. They both were very venomous snakes.
Yeah. Kelly was over there, I was like, what is he doing over there? He's kind of talking to one of the guys on the side, and I was like, what are you doing? He's over there. Hey, which of these frogs can I lick? I was like, come on, man.
Not true.
Just teasing.
Oh, that's funny.
Those frogs are pretty cool too.
My other target would have been the sloth.
Yeah.
Did you guys get sloth opportunities?
We saw one. It was at one of the locations. The guide found it for us, and we were able to put eyes on it and see it way up high. But one of the cool things we learned about sloths, and a lot of folks probably already know this, but they only come out of the treetops once a month. And the only reason they come down is to use the bathroom. And there are these moths that live on them and kind of keep the mold and stuff off of them, which is kind of cool. I thought, that was something I didn't know. Because they're so slow moving, they actually grow algae and stuff on them, right? Mm-hmm. So these moths, are doing them a favor by eating on the algae and stuff. And then when they come down to the bottom, they dig a hole in the ground and they use the bathroom. And then the moths jump in there and lay eggs on the feces. And then the sloths bury it and then they climb back up the trees. So very rarely do you see sloths down low unless you're in a controlled environment. It happens, right? But it's one of those where you got to be pretty lucky and at the right place, right time. So I'm sure I've seen images of, obviously it's flash photography with sloths and, in controlled environments for sure. I would do that in a heartbeat just because it's cool and I'd love to see one up close like that. But we did not see any or have any opportunities to really photograph them to get any what I'd say good images.
Well, that's too bad.
Sure. Yeah,
but earlier in the season they had one they saw crossing the road.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Matter of fact, Harry Collins, who does trips down there, right? I was just telling Kelly, he was there the week before we were, and they actually had one crossing the road. And he literally picked it up and helped it, cross the road. So they were able to probably get some really cool shots of it. But it's funny. It's like, the guy was like, "Yeah, why do they do that?" It's like the one thing they can't do is walk, and they try to do it all the time. It's like it's just it's natural, But he's like, well, there's something up that tree that this one doesn't have, and it's like it's the grass is always greener kind of a thing, But yeah, anyways, but kind of
apparently they're really good swimmers though.
Yeah, that's what he did say.
They're very powerful swimmers. Yeah, which is
they're not fast, but I have seen them in the water.
They're really good swimmers. So.
Well, but powerful, right? Didn't he say something about like they can crush your hand?
Yeah,
like if they grabbed your hand and were like aggressive, they could literally crush your hand.
I suppose being in the trees all the time,
right?
Got to be pretty strong. But.
Right. Super powerful grip in that. And that's what their defense is, right? Between the claws and the grip is even the predators that will, go after them. That's their defense is they won't move fast, but if they get a hold of you,
Yep.
Yeah, no, so that was cool too, right? Our guide that we had was great. Younger guy, JP, and he just had so much knowledge. You could tell he really focused on knowing and learning and being able to share knowledge of the country, knowledge of the environments we were in, and knowledge of the animals too. So we learned a lot just by default, just doing it too, which was really fun. But
he'd put a lot of effort into studying and having the information to share with us. I mean, that's one reason why he did such a good job, is because it was not just a matter of just the photography of finding the animals, but just the histories. As we were driving on the bus or the van. We would stop and have all kinds of good information that really contributed to the overall trip. I thought it was very well done.
Yep, for sure.
That's excellent. And then you said you guys got onto some other primates as well. What did you find?
Yeah, so on the first day we were there, we actually had a little bit of time. We went down and did like a half a day little thing where we had like a chocolate experience where it was really pretty cool. They, let us try, cocoa beans, cocoa beans in different phases, and then they actually had us take the final phase when they're all roasted and everything, and we hand ground them, and then we sweetened them with condensed milk, and then they made us like this chocolate bar. Anyways, it was kind of a fun experience. But in that location, on the way there, we saw a white-faced monkey, which was the only time we saw it, and it was just out the side of the road, no way to stop, no way to even try to pretend to photograph it. And then the only other monkeys we saw were howler monkeys, and we saw them a couple different times. And they were pretty cool. I was impressed. Like this, but it's like seeing it in person again is just kind of wild. Where the monkey will go up and grab a leaf, a set of leaves, and then he'll hang by his tail upside down and sit and eat it. And then when he's done, he goes up and gets another one and goes and finds a branch to hang by his tail. And anyways, it was kind of fun watching those. They didn't get anything crazy photography wise, but it was kind of fun having those encounters with them too, and hearing those males and how aggressive they can be that's what got me. It's like, holy cow, if you didn't know that was a howler monkey, and you were lost in the jungle and heard that, you'd be like, I'm dead.
Especially after dark. That last night we had one in the trees above our cabins, and he was creating a fuss, and I thought, oh my goodness, someone's dying up there. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
It's coming for me.
But they get up in the tops of the trees in the rainforest, and they just kind of navigate their way across. And if they don't have a way to go, they just jump to the next limb and grab a hold of it, and they're just all over the place. But they just navigate as a group, as a family, just kind of work away looking for food the whole time.
We even did see some moms with the babies were young enough for that time of year where they were kind of, riding their backs and stuff. But again, no good photos of them. But it's crazy. The moms will just go take off and they'll leave the little ones. And I mean, they learn pretty quickly. We watched a couple little ones make that leap of faith, and it was like, oh, that thing, it's not going to make it. And it'll just grab one little tiny branch and swing by it and just, they're back up with mom. It's insane watching them. It's like, wow, it's pretty incredible. But, and I think we figured out they don't really throw things at you. They just kind of drop stuff all the time. And so if you're around them, it feels like they're throwing stuff at you. But
yeah. You're not getting the poop scoop.
Yeah, we didn't get any of that. I don't think we didn't taunt them. We weren't like wanting them to prove it,
Right. Good call.
Yeah.
What was the favorite?
That's a tough question. Going there, my top two things were a toucan and the red-eyed green trade frog. Mm-hmm. And I got both of those. So they would be in my top 5 for sure. But there was a lot of stuff we didn't expect. I mean, the king vultures were really cool. We got some good in-flight stuff of them. And it was cool to see a big group of dark black vultures or turkey vulture looking things, and then have this big old white red-headed thing in the middle of them. So that was an unexpected species. I wasn't thinking I'd enjoy that much. Yep. But I mean, everything I got there was something I'd never photographed anywhere else.
Right.
So it was all really good. I can probably give you my top 5, but I couldn't give you my favorite, I don't think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The yellow viper was pretty cool. You're not going to see that anywhere else either, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm with Kel. I would say for me it was, I would say very similar. I don't think I had like my goal to go in there, and Kelly knew this, was the viper for sure. Was the eyelash viper for sure. That was the top of my list, right? But then all the birds really impressed me. Even some of the smaller birds that we photographed, just all the color they have, and the opportunities we had were just incredible. And king vultures were a surprise. And then on the last day, and Kelly alluded to this earlier, but the last day when we did the river tour, we ended up seeing a bare-throated tiger heron. And our guide called him in, and he did this whole display. And that blew my mind. I mean, I'd never seen a bird like that. It's incredibly beautiful, especially, you think of heron, you're thinking of a GBH, or you're thinking of it. Not that they're not pretty, but it's just, we're used to seeing those birds, right? Matter of fact, we drove by some GBHs, and they were kind of like calling them out. We're like, yeah, just a GBH, yeah, we're good, But yeah, that tiger heron came in and did his thing, and it was just like, wow.
So please tell me somebody got that on video.
No.
I got photos. I don't think I got video. Yeah.
No, if you look at probably of all the species we shot, we probably shot more photos of that one bird than any other single bird, I think.
I think so too.
I had both lenses going, forward, backward, tight crop. We were at one end of the boat to the other end of the boat, telling the guy to back the boat up, move it closer. It was way cool. It was really cool. Again, you're never going to see that anywhere else. It was really cool.
Right.
Yeah, and in that same river trip, we ended up seeing, and I can't remember, we'll have to ask Suzanne, but some kind of a rail. And it's a very rare bird, apparently. And we didn't get any good photos of it, but we got, documentation photos. But apparently it's like not even supposed to be seen in the area we're in. And the area that it lives in is a very small sliver in that area, and the other area in Costa Rica. But the people that were there had never seen one in that spot before, in that location. So, to be a part of that, not even really knowing that was that rare, but to be able to be there and see a super rare bird like that, and in a very wild situation, was pretty cool, so.
The Quetzal was one of my new favorites too.
Yeah, that has to be at the top of the list, which at first I was like, okay, whatever. And then it ended up being like Kelly said, just wow.
Yeah, it's one of our top 3 or 4 for sure. Really,
I wish we had more time with the Quetzal. If I had one complaint about the trip, it would be, I wish we had another day or two or evening or shoot with the Quetzal, right?
Yeah.
Because we were just kind of getting figured out okay, this is what it does. This is the behavior. This is when it's going to fly. This is how you need to set up to get that in-flight shot. This, all your settings and everything else, right? And we kind of just, they were the opportunity, like they were raving about all the opportunities we had. And Kelly and I were basically like, that wasn't very many opportunities, man. It was pretty slim. But apparently the behavior in that was very active for the time of year, because this was it was a younger female and a male that had not got the nest done. The eggs weren't there and they weren't tending the nest yet. Because as soon as they're tending the nest, apparently those opportunities are pretty few and far between.
They're done, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. You're not going to get a lot of the in-flight stuff and a lot of the other stuff. But So they were very happy with the amount of activity we'd seen. And we were too, don't get me wrong. We got some really neat stuff, but it was just, it'd be cool because there's, you sit in a lodge and you're seeing all these amazing photos of these quetzals in flight. And you're like, I need that photo, and then you're like, okay, you start doing it. It's like, whoa, that's not as easy as I thought it was going to be, like, okay, how do we do this? Right. Then you start kind of chatting, Kelly and I are back and forth. This is how I'm doing, blah, blah, whatever. And then we finally start to get it. And then it's like, oh, we're done, like,
yeah.
So, but yeah, but we still got some really neat stuff. Those quetzals were a crazy pretty bird. But.
So people can go to the show notes and see them. Yeah. Describe what the quetzal was.
Well, it's kind of a parrot-looking bird, kind of. The hair on its head and stuff is kind of very similar to a parrot, but it's green with a big red chest and a green feathers that go way down, really long, and they're split. But the fun part's when it flies, it looks like it's flying a wave. It took us a while to figure out that they come up, they dip and come up to their nest. And so if you're set up thinking it's going to fly into the nest, you end up getting half a bird. So once it did that a couple of times, we changed how we were setting up to catch it. But it's just the green and the red together, complementary colors in the same bird. The long split tail feathers it was just very unique and very pretty. And that bird's been around a long, long time. And if I remember from my 6th grade years, that bird has a lot to do with a lot of the history and the native people in the Central America, as far as their adornment and their the art, ancient art, and the quetzals are a part of all of that. So it was pretty cool to actually put our eyes on it. And it kept the one thing is it kept landing and perching on this branch facing away from us the whole time. It was facing the wrong way. So everyone's, Jason and I was thinking, boy, I should be in this thing to turn around. And the very last shot we got was it landed facing us. So we ended up getting some shots with the red breast and everything. It was really cool. Yeah. One thing about shooting birds there that was pretty cool, and I probably got 30 birds I can't identify, but there seemed to be a lot of, with the moss on the trees and the limbs and the colorful birds, I found it was really a lot easier there for some reason to get really good, pretty birds on good perches with just blown out backgrounds, with backgrounds that didn't have a bunch of noise and stuff in them. I got a lot of really, really nice bird shots that I wasn't looking for just because you could not shoot it. You're walking down the trail with your 600 and this bird that's got 5 shades of blue perches on this little mossy stick with nothing around it. And those ended up being some of my favorite photos of the trip.
Yeah. Yeah. And you still don't know what the bird is.
Oh, no, it's a 5-shaded bluebird.
Yeah. The thing about it is we had a birder with us, and she documented everything. I mean, she saw over 100 lifers, 105 birds she's never seen anywhere. And she's pretty well traveled. But she documented them all, wrote them all down. So at some point, as I edit someday,
have a list. Yeah.
I will take the name and actually attach it to the file, so I will know exactly what the bird is, because it was impossible to keep up with, and that's why it was nice having some of the birders around to help us with that.
Yeah, we had a couple. Both, Angie was a big birder too. We had 2 that were getting lifers added to their list, and it's fun to watch how excited they were too. I mean, I don't know if we were as excited just because it was we didn't know the species or know the relevance of how rare it was to see specific birds or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when you experience somebody see a bird that they really wanted to see and they get to see it in person in the wild and it brings them to tears.
Yeah, we had a couple of those.
Yeah. That's a neat experience regardless of what you're looking for, what you're there for, right? You just get to be a part of that, which is kind of neat. So
it was fun because we were seeing stuff in our long lenses that they weren't seeing as fast on a few occasions. And we'd say, hey, did you see that? Have you seen that one yet? And so Jason and I know firsthand helped them identify new birds pretty regularly, which was kind of part of the team effort we had going on. It was part of the fun, I think.
It was fun. It made it fun for us too to be watching for, newer species or things that we hadn't seen yet, so it was cool. And then they'd get in there and they'd start like, oh, what is that? What was this? And they'd talk about each other and they'd look and oh, no, it's this for sure. They're like, yeah, high-fiving and, So it was fun. We had a good time.
Well, it sounds like you guys had an incredible trip. Costa Rica is one of the destinations that I've always wanted to go, and I can't really point a finger as to why, except that there's so much biodiversity. I mean, you could be on the coast or you could be in the rain cloud forest. And
you'll enjoy it, Ron. When you go, you'll enjoy it. There's no question.
And we were the same mindset. It was just, you see photos that everybody's posted, and especially if you have, as you've grown through life, you'd say, God, it'd be nice to have a photo like that, or to see that firsthand. And so it was nice just to check the list and check it off. And it actually was a better experience than I had thought it would be. And we got a lot more opportunities, a variety of different species than I had anticipated, which was just a plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the nice thing too was all of it was very wild. I mean, they're coming to areas where they're fed regularly, right? Obviously, and so I mean, I don't know. You could argue is it baited or not, whatever. But they've been doing this for 20, decades. 30 years in some cases, yeah. And so these birds, that's why they're so easy to just be seen in specific areas, and why the people have the opportunity to see them and have the enjoyment of it, photographing them. But all the animals we saw were wild, except for maybe I know that the 2 vipers that we photographed were not, right. They were not. We didn't go through the forest at night and find them, and they were owned by some folks, which is, I'm always very honest about my photography, right. I'm not going to try to claim something's wild when it's not. I'm not going to try to, if I shoot something in a zoo, I'm going to say this was a zoo animal, on and on. So, some of these photos, I mean, they're all wild, but except for the vipers that we photographed, those were,
and they had to be licensed. They had to be licensed.
Yeah, they had to be licensed to own them, and that was the only way you're going to guarantee that you're going to see like an eyelash viper, for example. You fly all that way and you spend all that money, and you want to see one. Well, this is how you're going to guarantee you can see one. But and that was fine. I was fine with that, knowing that's what it was, right? But the frogs that we photographed were all wild. They actually literally went out and caught them. And, we photographed them and then they let them go, so it was kind of fun so for the most part, everything was wild, which is kind of nice too. So.
Well, I'm a little bit jealous, but I'm going to go at some
remember
point.
There was a phone call to somebody about this trip.
I'm pretty sure we invited somebody to come with us.
I know. No, I would love to have, but last year was a big year for all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
But I kind of blew my wad last year, and this year I have an opportunity this fall that I'm going to take advantage of, going down to the Pontinel.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
And trying to find a jaguar. So,
very cool.
And I'm sure I'll get some of the same bird species, not the variety that you guys got, but everything will be new down there as well. So I kind of have that expectation, but
yeah.
Yep,
yeah, that's high on the list for, I know Kelly and I both. I mean, both that, the pumas and the jaguars are both high on my list for next ones that I need to focus on. So
the pumas, we might need to make that happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, before it gets completely ruined.
Crazier than it already is, but
right, I know.
It's pretty neat.
But
well, thanks again, Kelly, for coming on.
You bet.
Thank you guys for sharing that story. That's awesome, and I do thank you for the invite. I just wasn't able to swing that.
You can't do them all.
No, you can't.
We know that. Yeah,
you can't.
But no, and then I just want to thank Kelly too, because Kelly did put this entire thing together, and I appreciate him thinking of me. And we can kind of joke. He's not going to like this joke, but I think it's is he my photography spouse? Is he like? We spend a lot of time together. There's no question, but
a lot.
No, I'm joking and just jabbing a little bit, but honestly, I appreciate the friendship and I appreciate the opportunity to go and have these experiences. So
I know Kelly knows all the lyrics to Jason's favorite songs to sing in the car,
and then some, I'm sure.
Yeah, we don't harmonize very well in the car, so I let Jason do all the singing.
That's funny.
But we will do some mic'd up episodes. There's no question. We need to do it. It'd be fun.
It's going to happen.
But we spend too much time together doing this kind of thing when I can order his breakfast better than his wife can order his breakfast.
That's a true story. One morning, my wife was, it was hilarious. And Kelly's like, Melanie, like, I could literally order your husband's meal for him. And he'd like list it out. I was like, yep, that's it.
That's what I want.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, we had fun.
That's
It was
funny.
good.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you all for listening to another episode of Beyond the Wild. Please, please, please join us on YouTube, like and subscribe. And also, if you wouldn't mind, on your favorite podcast platform, leave us some feedback. Give us that 5-star rating. If you're not going to give us a 5-star rating, don't give us a rating at all. Thank you to our sponsors, Canon USA and pictureline.com. And just for them believing in us and giving us the opportunity to be back on and bringing these stories and these adventures to you and letting you go along with us. Have a great week and get out there.
It's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA. Follow us on Instagram at Beyond the Wild Podcast, and make sure to check out our website at beyondthewildpodcast.com for additional show notes, information, and photographs for all of our episodes. You can watch our podcast on YouTube, where we'll include video and photo content, and subscribe. We welcome your comments, questions, and feedback on all of our social media platforms. We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. Until next time, embrace adventure in the great outdoors with a camera in hand.